And this doesn't need to be a long meeting, but,
Okay.
let's see what we can get done. Let's see. So first, I thought we should just do introductions as to, who we are, why we're here. Though, so at the other meeting, we did have a discussion at my house with Jerry Frankel and Brian Pools and, Bob Shatton. And Bob's not on the committee, he was on CSEC. You've met Bob, I think.
I
maybe?
don't know if I have. I
He's
feel like
an
I've heard the
energy
name.
consultant,
Oh,
who is, good guy. He was on CSEC for a few years. But he went to Niger,
Yes,
maybe at the same time that you joined, or,
yeah, right around the same time. I know Bob. He lives right next to a very good friend of mine off of Indian Springs Road,
who's your friend?
Sam Joffe.
Oh,
I
no,
don't think you know
don't know.
him. Yeah.
But I know that Bob's other neighbor, so I thought,
No, I think I have met Bob at one of our climate
Yeah,
action
he's been
committee
there.
meetings, right?
Yeah.
and so I had taken some notes there. So let's see. It's a small group. Let's introduce ourselves to make sure we all know. And Ellen's the one who hasn't been to CAC meetings. So why don't you start?
oh, okay, so I'm an economist with a degree in economics and geology. That's the only thing that's close to geothermal. I did actually research putting geothermal into my house,
I remember.
so that was totally exciting and it
I'm
came
shaking
close.
down.
I chickened out of it. I have to destroy my entire garden. I just couldn't do it. So what I'm interested particularly is understanding the business model. Around this, I was kind of interested in the sense that gas companies could use the same gas pipes, they could use the same gas fitters, that's always good. And that it's, as gas goes, as we hope the gas demand goes down, here is a continuing source of revenue for them. So I can see the benefit to that. I'm really interested in how CMLP fits into that, unless maybe it's people who have gas that goes by their house, me, for example, even though I'm not hooked up, could be kind of fill-in. But again, I don't know whether we're after sort of general use for all the town, or if this is, I don't know whether you call it
It's an open,
environmental justice or economic.
open question.
Yeah, so I know the ones that I've read about are, I don't know whether it's called in environmental justice or economic justice areas.
Yeah, environmental justice.
Environmental justice areas, because they're specifically are going to some of the housing, so I don't know whether that's because of funding, grant money.
Right.
That's a requirement.
That's
So I guess that question is, one question is whether that's our call, so.
Do we have
great.
any EJ communities in Concord?
No,
We do not.
Not at all.
If you look at the map, you will see one, which was the prison.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right.
Okay.
So that was our only one. And now that it's
Does the
despite
prison
still being,
farm qualify?
I
so.
don't know.
Yeah,
Do we keep it zoned that way?
wouldn't that be
No.
interesting?
And you know, environmental justice means a couple of things. It means English language speakers, it means lower than median.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
large
That's a
number
number of
them.
definitions, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, when we think about equity, which is important anyway, even though we're not, have EJ subcommunities, we can think about, you know, serving renters and,
Yeah.
you know, seniors and disadvantaged
Mhm,
people, front and center.
mhm.
But it does eliminate some possibility, it does narrow possibilities on grant funding. But
Yeah,
I don't think that should
Mhm, okay,
discourage us necessarily.
absolutely not. Yeah, otherwise, you'd be leaving out a number of communities, right? I mean,
yeah,
if it was limited to a small portion of the population. Notwithstanding it, you know, makes perfect sense and you can understand the rationale. If it was limited to that only. Then there'd be a lot of the rest of the general populace that's left out, so.
Right, and well, and
It just,
it is easy to forget about this. We
Yeah.
found that in Heat Smart, when we did the program that Ellen did get air source from,
right,
yeah. We had plans to target the Council on Aging and
yeah,
lower and moderate income people, and we kind of forgot about it. And didn't get
Mhm.
around to that. It's not the easy thing, so, you know,
mhm.
That's why.
Yeah, yeah.
Mike,
Yes.
you
So where
work
you-
at National Grid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, be
that's
careful
what-
what you say about utility zone.
No, it's just,
I
if,
know.
if that that's what I heard, I just thought it was fascinating that it could be a revenue
It
continuation.
it is,
Very cool.
and we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
I actually gave a presentation right alongside heat a
Yeah,
few months ago,
Okay.
and we had a nice little discussion on how that can be partnered with
Yeah,
utilities
yeah.
and how there's really mutual interest in doing that. So, Mike McDonald, I've been with, CAC now for over 3 years. You know, it's been
well,
over
through the
three.
CSEC, CS. Yeah.
CSEC, CAC, so coming up in September, it's gonna be 3 years.
Okay.
Things got pretty hectic this past winter with family life and work, and I sort of phased out a little bit, but hoping to phase back in, particularly around the geothermal aspect. But I do work with National Grid. I've got a degree in engineering. I'm a licensed engineer here in Massachusetts. I have an undergraduate degree in geology also.
do you? I love it.
And the energy, water nexus has always been of interest to me.
Yeah.
So geothermal sort of fits in there, but,
Yeah.
wastewater heat recovery, water source heat pumps.
Uh-huh.
That area I find particularly fascinating.
Yeah,
And, yeah, geothermal is really, it is being framed really by the utilities and by communities as really the next big leap
Yeah,
in moving toward decarbonization, both because you can utilize underground infrastructure and also because it's extremely efficient. It's got COPs 4, 5, 6, so it's got a lot of coefficient of performance. It's a
Is that heat
Yeah.
efficiency?
Yes, the heat
Okay,
efficiency,
got it.
yeah, extremely high, the most efficient electrification measure out there. So it's got a lot of attractiveness to it, and hopefully we can get something going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
your air source heat pumps have a COP as well.
I have no idea what it is.
And that means when you put, when you get a kilowatt of power out of your
Mhm.
wall, you get 2 or 3 kilowatts of heat. Cause
Well,
it's harvesting, it's a heat,
Yeah.
harvesting heat, pumping it from the air into your home.
I mean, the whole concept is just so cool, and especially cool when it's coming from the underground. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
geothermal concept is just,
Right.
wonderful because, anybody who builds a house into a hill, my niece and nephew live in Anchorage and they're built a house into the side of a hill and, the heating is, like, you just have a
Mm.
mass storage unit and they're done because
Yeah.
of the
Mhm.
amazing amount of, heating potential, kinetic energy potential in the ground. And I think to harness it through
Yeah.
geothermal is just a stunning concept.
Yeah. Catherine.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm a
What
new member.
makes you here?
So, my background is in education, moved to Concord about 5 years ago. Started out doing environmental education way back when, but really worked more in the youth policy, and just sort of educational arena generally. So I do not have a science background. I joined CAC, I guess just last month officially. Have been working with Mothers Out Front and other, climate type communities in Concord and getting my feet wet in that. Did a climate-based fellowship. So have learned a lot about sort of cutting edge carbon sequestration technology, and just the energy sector is new to me. I am not an expert, but I am so fascinated by it. My mom, who's in a continuing care residential community in Philadelphia, has geothermal. It was built
Wow.
30, 40 years ago. So this is not new technology. And it's, as you said, incredibly efficient. But the capital costs, upfront costs are feeling so prohibitive. So to Ellen's point, I'm interested in the economics. I'm interested in the viability.
Mhm.
I also looked at it. We're about to, pull a trigger on a heat pump installation, which is not cheap at all. But we have I don't know, a collage of heating right now of everything you can imagine, oil and fire and baseboard heating. And And when I inquired about geothermal, it was like 2x of what the heat pumps would be. So yes, so I guess it's all to say that I've sort of gone down the road personally. I've sort of learned a little bit about it professionally, but I'm new to it, but I feel like it is sort of the wave of the future. And if we can capitalize on the utilities to really think about transitioning, then I think it could be a game changer. But again, I'm just sort of feeling like I'm scratching at the surface now. So I'm motivated to learn more. And I hope I can be a helpful and contributor, but I will say that at full disclosure, I do not have a lot of, expertise in this area.
I think you're gonna be one of the most important people.
Yes,
here,
I
by the way.
agree.
So, Eric, everybody knows Eric.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Hi, Eric.
but
Well,
have you been thinking about, the network geo?
Yeah, I mean,
recently?
I'm really excited at the concept. I think it's really interesting. I think I'm excited by the pilot projects that I've seen take off with the big utilities, and I'm be really excited to explore the potential here in a light plant community and kind of going over to the business
Yeah.
model and what does that look like? How can we
Exactly.
make that successful here? And then I think that'd be a great example if we can for other light plant communities as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Yeah.
And also really interested in looking at specific opportunities. So what little I know about the pilot projects is it seems like, they pursued a mix of commercial and residential buildings and, trying to balance out demands and loads and things like that on the network. So I'd be really interested to see where opportunities might lie here in Concord, to try to do something like that. I also am just keeping in mind, especially for any new development, I think there's potential opportunities with new development that's happening either at MCI Concord or over at the old StarMet site. And those are still a ways away from any type of development. But certainly I think, that network geothermal should be at the forefront of discussion for any kind of development in new locations, but also existing locations. What can we find here in Concord that would be a great pilot?
And Baker Ave,
Exactly.
what's going on with 330 Baker Ave? Is
Uh,
that still a
Let's get
viable
into that a
project?
little bit. I wanna
Yeah.
just finish the intros.
Yeah, okay.
And so, I know everybody here, I am a physicist by training,
Mhm.
and don't hold that against me.
Are we ready?
It's not particularly useful in this conversation, but I'm also,
But it
Have
sure
it been-
sounds great.
It does.
Business,
It's
yeah,
impressive.
it's so cool.
Small business, I'm interested in the business model, and I think this is really almost a big question about business model. Can it work? And it's an open question. Certainly it can work at some price, to be good for either CMLP or National Grid or some combination of the two. But can that work for the customers, so I'm very excited about this. And I keep tabs on, the Framingham project, because I work with woman from Framingham on Mass Energize, and she's kind of tied into that. But I don't have any particular expertise. I don't have geothermal, but I have a question, a
I don't
physics
either.
question. Geothermal, is there any connection between geothermal heating and geothermal like you get in Iceland? Or,
Well,
No,
I mean, it,
well, you're not
one-
supposed to answer this.
oh, sorry, oh, that's
oh,
it.
that's a trick question for me.
Okay,
Yeah, so the word geothermal.
Well, no, I mean, that's got to do with heating of water underground by magma lava sources. This is just ambient heat in the ground.
Right.
You don't have to be in Iceland.
Exactly, and the
That's-
difference is, we don't have to generate power. We just take to
Oh,
borrow
right.
a little bit of heat.
Yeah, no, I think the ubiquity of it is amazing. And for me, when I heard that you can use the gas pipes in the ground, it was like, you don't have, it's not like fiber, you gotta pull fiber. It seemed like a bingo.
Right.
But, and so kind of to know, all right, where are the gas lines in town?
Right.
And I like the idea of demand balance. I mean, I think CMLP is so used to that concept of load balance.
Yeah,
So that, you know, I think they naturally think about the mix of custom, what is the profile? And for me, heat pump was a no-brainer because my AC had died. So it's like
Right.
$12,000 right there was in the bank.
right, that's it, that's how I got started.
And I think I'm not alone in that, so it's like.
Okay, so then on the, following the agenda, so
Okay.
we decided to make
Thank
a subcommittee. Originally, a year ago, I thought, let's skip the subcommittees, let's have just small working groups, but the working groups never got together and it was kind of like. I think the subcommittee that forces us to sort of make an agenda, take notes. Operate in the open is gonna actually help us to get more done. And we have to decide what it is we wanna do. As part of that. But it means we have to, act as a subcommittee. We can't meet all together or even, quorum outside of, the public meetings.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean we can't, meet one-on-one and talk and develop ideas. We just have to be cognizant of the fact of, how OML, affects us. And you've been on committees before, so
Oh,
you
way
kind
too
of
many,
know,
yeah.
you know all about
Yeah.
this. It's a subcommittee of CAC, but it doesn't, we can have external members, which is a good thing, and I think external members could be, even be chair or something, if they so desire. And, we do need to have a chair, I think, and someone to take notes, and I'm taking notes tonight. In fact, I'd much rather be on this committee as a clerk than as a chair. If there's someone who is willing to, sort of play the chair role, because I'm co-chairing the climate committee.
Oh,
And,
right. Linda.
so, I was, you know, I was thinking this committee could meet once a month. Because I think that's probably about right. To move things forward. It's not like a task force that is like, but maybe we decide that it's more important than that, and we wanna meet every, 2 weeks or something, if we're really pushing something forward, but I don't see it. What do you think about?
I think, well, so. My sense is that we'll probably have to wait and see how things unfold. There may be times where it makes sense to meet, twice a month, and there may be times
Right.
when we're waiting for information
Yeah,
and we can limit that frequency.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite clear on what the goals of the committee might be, what we're trying to do with the
Yeah.
town of Concord. I think that would help to define how frequently. I agree that it might be. We get to a point where we think we have to meet more frequently when we get down and dirty on
right.
a specific
So
proposal. We're not, the goal isn't an article, right? The town meeting?
it could be,
Oh,
Absolutely
okay, so
could be.
that's a whole different, that's a,
but I don't see what the article would be.
yeah, I was just saying right now, it's like, I think
It's
it's
a
more
little
kind of a proposal
premature.
to.
Look, but goals is the next thing on the agenda. Now, would you be willing to chair?
I know, I mean, I just dropped a committee at my church that I have chaired for 3 years, so
Oh, so it's an opening.
I will be honest, no, I'll be fair, my focus from now until November is canvassing. I'm going this weekend to
Okay, for
Philadelphia,
you.
Pennsylvania. I'm spending all my time
Are you going to
fancy.
Pennsylvania this weekend?
with, Scott Richardson,
I know Scott.
yeah, with Scott. So,
Okay,
Good for
I-
you. I'm a Philadelphia, outside of
there
Philadelphia.
you go, we're going to near Scranton, so.
Okay.
Rural PA, so I don't want to
you
chair
can visit
because
my brother,
I will if I'm,
but he's already on,
Stroudsburg?
he's on board.
oh, we're getting volunteers. Oh, where does he live?
He lives in, Wilkes-Barre.
Okay, so give me his number. I'll give him-
I will,
I'm
okay,
looking for volunteers
You,
to canvas.
absolutely, Ellen. Charlie's number.
No, I mean, also, I don't think I know enough about the box that this project would be in to be an effective chair?
Yeah, we don't have to decide one
Yeah.
time. We can nominate somebody that's not here.
Oh,
Or
what, that's always a good idea.
unless Catherine wants to,
Catherine,
would you like to chair a small committee just to?
I don't, I mean, I wish I could say yes, but I can't. I don't have the capacity right now. And I also feel like, yeah, I think I need to get my feet wet a little bit more in the CAC before I start sharing things, but I appreciate the ask.
so tell me what a chair is gonna do, practically, because maybe you
Chair,
can
I
like
don't
make
think the
it.
Chair necessarily needs to do any more
It's,
work
well,
than
the only
anybody
thing you
else.
really need to do is have a clerk, so you're just finished signing up for one thing that's really important.
Maybe we just stick with the clerk for now and
But
we
we,
kind of put an agenda together
so I'm thinking,
to get with input from everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping people will take actions from the meeting and say, you know, this is my, I wanna go and do this thing and we'll, you know, we'll make forward progress.
yeah,
I'm cool, no chair.
well, I mean, I think having action items will speak people, then understanding that, you know, they report back the next month on
Right.
something specific.
Is a chair a requirement as part of the
Open
committees
meeting?
in Concord or? No,
I think you
Um,
need to post an agenda.
agenda and minutes. but-
Yeah, Eric helps with the agenda, so I mean, he,
But do you need an official chairperson? And on
I
the
don't,
committee?
I actually don't really know,
I don't know.
Oh, well, if
I've
and I
never-
don't really even care.
we don't, well, if we don't need one, then
Let's not do it.
I don't see anyone stepping up.
We're an
and
autonomous
I'm-
collective.
Right.
I don't have the time either, so we don't really need one.
mean, this is
But
gonna
it's a very
oper-
small, there's only four
Right,
of us on the committee.
I think
right.
it's more kind of figuring out what the topics are and going and starting to do
Yeah.
something.
With the Climate Action Committee, the chair, which I'm now co-chairing, and we decided to do that because the chair of that, being chair of that committee was a bit too much. And because I take it like,
You had some,
conductor of the orchestra, not playing the instruments necessarily, but it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it
Yeah.
was, I think it's an important role in the bigger committee.
Yes.
I don't think it's as important a role, in this group
No, it's four
right
people.
now.
well, I mean, we, you know, there's no need to attend chair breakfasts, so you don't need a
Right.
chair.
For example.
Well, and you could have a rotating facilitator if you feel like, you know,
Well, I
one.
mean, that's another way to say it,
Yeah.
but somebody who's facilitating a
Okay.
meeting and
I
that's a
wanna think
rotating
that's a
basis.
good,
That's not, that's
Yeah.
how I've seen things happen when nobody says, I want to be chair, whatever you want to call
So
it.
let's
You
call
look at
that
rotating.
the first decision, rotating facilitator.
And that person is going to be setting up the agenda and getting it posted.
Yeah,
And does, Eric, is that something that we can just send it to someone, or is that something that you need to be doing?
An agenda?
No, posting it.
Oh, posting it
Yeah,
yeah.
before a meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of worked both ways, like the Climate Action Committee. I mean, I can send it to the clerk's office
okay, just.
to
send
get
to
it
the clerk.
posted, or sometimes, you know, Brad or somebody has
Oh, okay, so
sent it, so it doesn't really matter who it comes from, as long as it gets there in
okay,
advance.
so the person who's facilitator would be sure they were setting the agenda for the next meeting, make sure, was it 24 hours, 48 hours?
48 hours.
48 hours ahead,
Should,
and send a clerk to Kari.
should, connect with Eric. With Eric to get agenda posted.
And put down 48 hours, because it's really easy to miss that.
48 hours ahead of.
At the meeting,
Yeah.
so this would have to be
Meeting.
posted
Yeah, if
You know,
it's
when-
Wednesday, you have to post by Monday, and,
Yeah.
Monday, technically
s-
7 p.m. But,
well, whatever.
Yeah.
Noon is a good target.
okay,
If it's Tuesday, then it's Friday then, and then if there's a vacation day,
Yeah.
you would have to add that in and stuff.
yeah, it's business days, right? Yeah, so it's not Saturday, Sunday, don't count.
So let's talk about goals and rationale. And so Eric mentioned, you know, the prison site. and that's a great rationale. Because if we were to do a big project at the prison site, we don't even know how to do it. It would be too big. Whereas if we can, learn a lot and maybe do a smaller pilot sooner, then we'd be in a position to,
Is network geothermal, does it count, does what First Parish did count because it's several buildings, or does it have to be several different buildings?
not really the question, so,
Like, I don't quite know what defines, I have a geothermal site, it's just me and my house versus
yeah,
it's. I mean, to me, it seems like it's part of this thing of like, it's a common asset.
yeah.
You're paying into it like you pay into a condo fee.
So I'm working on the, First Parish, committee that's working on that, together with Rick and
Yeah.
some other people. And, we're making good progress. That's not networked geothermal, that's a
It's just-
central geothermal
It
system.
goes to many buildings.
Well, it's gonna go to 4 or 5 buildings, one of which is larger than the others. Now why is that not a network geothermal? That's an open loops, that's gonna be, probably 2 wells, open loop system. And it's more like a hub and spokes, and
Mhm.
it's not,
Oh, I see, okay,
it's not networked in any sense.
okay.
It could somehow, with the right technology, connect to a network somehow. I don't know.
It's a,
I don't know how that would work. That could be very
Mm.
difficult.
but it's a common, like, if you thought, let's do network geothermal at MCI Concord, to me, it'd be sort of like, there's MCI Concord, then you go down Com Ave. To all the buildings on Com Ave, that
That
would
would
make
be,
it networked. If it
Right.
came around a loop,
well, right, so this is part of the learning. The loop is a big deal. It's like the loop is a conduit of heat or cool. That anybody along that loop could tap into. That's the way I think of it.
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I think so there's the business part of it, right? So if you have the same owner, which is First Parish,
it's not technical.
right, there's the owner portion of it, so you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about how it's being subdivided and paid for.
Mhm.
And that's what Lowell and Framingham are trying to figure out with the pilot studies, is the business model for network geothermal like that. And then there's the technical part of it where, so First Parish is technically, it could have been a loop, it could have been
Right.
a spoken wheel.
But the open
Yeah.
loop makes it quite different. The open
Yeah.
loop, and do you know what that means?
Well, I mean, it's like a railroad track that's going from point A around
Well,
to,
no, the open,
but it's a, what, continuous loop, right?
no, on geothermal, when I say open loop as opposed to closed loop,
Oh.
that's a different thing. That's whether you actually take water out of the ground and use that water. That's an open loop. That's like, we have a well, we go all the way down to the water, we pump the water up, and we take heat out of it. Whereas a closed loop system is like a pipe goes down into the earth. It may touch water, or it may just touch rocks, and then the pipe comes out, and some fluid, water and
Your
antifreeze
glycol back.
is
Yeah,
in
okay,
that
okay,
loop,
all right,
but it doesn't contact with
Okay.
the water
it's
underground.
more like a refrigerator. in that
Exactly.
sense, Okay,
So,
So
so.
just to clarify,
and there's-
is less refrigerant used then in an open loop than in a closed loop?
No, you don't,
Is it-
with an open loop system. Where you go all the way down to the water, 500 feet or for First Parish or something, or 580. You take the water out and you've got to put clean water back down. You can't mess with it.
Right,
Now it could mess with you. Cause water has, iron and minerals and
Okay.
stuff in it, so you actually, what is gonna be the first stage is gonna be a heat exchanger to a closed loop. Or two different closed loops for each building, because you don't wanna take that water that you get out of the ground
yeah,
and run it through some expensive equipment,
right.
that leads to bad things. So Now, so First Parish is an interesting project. It's hopefully gonna happen. But it's not really the same as this.
Okay.
Um,
Is one of the questions the geography of it? So like where is, I guess there's two parts of that geography. One would be, where is there a continuous, where is there houses that are closest together? Like, I'm not sure I'd want to go out Monument Street. But West Concord, yeah, I live in West Concord, there's
Yeah.
lots of opportunities there where it makes sense. And I don't know whether it
Exactly.
needs to go by commercial. If there's a loading issue of residential versus commercial. And the other one, I don't know how this would work. I'd love your thinking about this. How does it what does it matter about where the gas line goes and the uptake, the number of people that the gas line passes that actually use the gas? The customer base that National Grid would go, okay, maybe I can use these guys to migrate them off of gas to.
so let's park
geothermal.
those questions.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Those
thinking.
are both good questions, and let's get to them.
Okay, and I don't know, but I was thinking about the business model, thinking that it's
Right,
payment, but it's also geography.
Yeah.
That it passes by, because the Framingham loop, I went through the video, it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's a bunch of houses that, the pipe goes down, more houses, there's a lot of places that pass by.
right,
That
so,
confused me, but then it's pilot.
right, so we have to learn how to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Now, which is to say how to do some business modeling.
Yeah.
And so as goals, let's just start enumerating what we think some goals are. Learn how to do the business modeling. The business and technology modeling.
How to define, what is the right word, how to score a site or a set of, an opportunity. There must be metrics for goodness of
Right.
fit. I'm gonna
Right, if we
say.
had
A scoring model for
Right.
potential sites.
if we had a big spreadsheet, we would plug in all the potential customers on that. And what what the cost would be to them and what their cost would be to,
I'm not even thinking that, I'm just thinking the basics of how do you, when you look at the Concord, how do you begin to think about where are the good locations? If it's not environmental
I think
justice,
that's, and I talked, Eric and I had a quick conversation around that. I do think finding a location
Yeah.
is probably one of the first places we want to start thinking about.
and there must be.
And then the location has to, and so what National Grid and Framing and Eversource are doing is they have a program to first identify customers that are willing to give up their gas source.
That is why we wanted
Right.
to know who was this
Yeah,
customer,
Exactly, so
who's the gas
who,
customer.
who is willing to abandon their gas? And that was one of the prerequisites for potential customers on these
Yeah.
network geothermal projects, is they have to be willing to abandon their gas, and that's a
Yes.
big ask
So,
Yes.
for people.
so
If they
to
don't.
put this into words, I would say, we have to learn how to do the community engagement to approach.
I think
So
that's gonna
that's
be
the-
the biggest,
Yeah,
one of the biggest hurdles, or one of the biggest challenges or steps with this process is identifying, yes, the community outreach
Yes,
and identifying locations.
well, that's why I'm saying, I
Yeah.
think that there's gotta be a set of metrics, this scores high on.
right,
Number of houses it passes per,
Right.
I don't know, XYZ feet.
Yeah.
The percentage of houses using gas, and then there's another one, which is some likelihood of being willing to.
And then you
That's a
start,
you
and then
know,
you start getting into, okay, so if, let's say we find an ideal community. We've got X number of people that are willing to give up their gas source, perfect, we can put in network geothermal. Look at the cost and it's too expensive. If there's funding out there, the funding may be focused on
Right.
something that is trying to find a mix of commercial and
Yes, yeah,
residential, so
yeah.
we may need to start thinking about
Right.
along those lines also, so there's a number of angles.
but I think
to
if you
come at
put this
this
all
from.
into a set of questions or criteria or check, a checklist for.
Yeah.
Site A, site B, site C.
Right.
Is it feasible Is there any logic for converting air source people to geothermal?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's a tough one. It's a tough question.
Particularly.
Because those people
Yeah.
just put in some.
No, I'm thinking myself, I'm thinking, what would I get for it? Besides,
So just to,
so gas customers are the sweet spot.
Well,
Well-
there's a kind of a question, as I feel this is all great, but I was under the understanding, at least now, that you basically have to have ducts to do geothermal. Is that true? Can you have ductless geothermal?
you can have ductless geothermal.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It'd be the same as.
And
more
air source.
expensive. You have to put the cartridges in.
And you
but-
could count on ductless is probably part of this. There's
Yeah.
both ductless and there's also hydronic. You know, you can do geothermal
Yeah,
to heat water, although you don't get cooling out of that. So
Okay.
that's kind of not as good. But just to as
Would,
a spoiler, I think the ideal customer for a pilot is a large multifamily development where you have basically one customer
yeah,
and a lot of people. If we found that,
like, no,
now that means you'd have to have a,
not an apartment like Nova, you mean like
like,
a place up by Thoreau Hills?
like Concord Green or something. Or like, you know, the big apartments in on, you know, they're in various parts of town, which are all gas. And they're,
Concord Green's gas principal?
yes, 100%.
What's the place up by Thoreau Hill, the Thoreau Club? The
Oh,
Monster place?
Novo,
No, not Nova,
or
it's,
the other one.
it's got hundreds of,
up on the hill.
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
behind Thoreau Club.
Black
No,
Birch,
I don't mean Blackbird, it's up, it's
is that the one they're gonna be building?
It's by,
Yeah.
it goes, it's in the corner, it's on the.
So
border
that's
of
in
Banner.
play, and I'm not sure we're gonna,
I mean, I guess. It doesn't have to be new construction, it's,
new construction is nice.
yeah, really nice, but
And so it's gonna be challenging for us, but to go to a neighborhood and say, you know, we have this thing. Would you like to be part of it? Well, we can't really tell you how it's gonna work, cause it hasn't been done before, but besides that, you know, that's a hard,
Yeah.
tough sell.
It is, unless there is a financial incentive to do so, which there
Right.
is, and that's
Right.
something we want to touch on also. Is
How
what's
in-
available for financial incentives, and one of the bigger incentives that's being offered by both National Grid and Eversource is trying to identify clusters, or let's say, end of line of a gas line, like say, you know, where I live on a dead end. Where people might be willing to come off of gas and go onto geothermal. And there are incentives to do that. Because the utilities have skin in the game to downsize their gas network,
Yeah.
basically. And so.
what's the skin in the game to downsize it? It's
they get-
inevitable
they get
or it's,
Paid for it.
oh, because there's an
Yeah, they get-
incentive,
there's an
okay, all right, yeah,
incentive.
of
Yeah,
course.
well, they have to do it. The DPU is forcing the utilities to do this.
And why is a dead end better? What did you call it, like a,
It, you know, may not be, but
Oh.
it's more the condition of the piping. Let's
Right. If
say,
it's
for
leaky
example,
pipe,
that
yeah.
National Grid or Eversource has a network of gas piping that is ready for an upgrade, and they're gonna sink a lot of money
oh,
into
I
it.
see, sure,
Rather than put that money into the utility, the better option is to put it into network geothermal, and
Right.
that's where the money is.
Right.
And they may have identified sections in Concord already, so that's probably something we
Right,
wanna check into.
so have,
but do you know what the cycle is for how often a pipeline has to be refreshed? Is it 20 years, 10?
no, it should be 100 years.
100
It should
years.
be, it
Wow.
should be,
Yeah, decades.
Decades.
Yeah.
Decades.
And it has to
I
do
mean-
like the corrosivity of the soil, and there's a lot of factors that go into it, but
But
it's something
they
over
track that, the
decades.
utility's gonna be tracking ones that.
Oh, yeah.
and Mothers Out Front has tracked all the leaks.
Got it, all right,
Yeah.
way ahead
and
of
stuff,
me.
so there's a lot known. So,
Yeah.
and Acton, which is, they got a grant from, Pete to, plan network geothermal, and they specifically said, you know, one tack is let's look at all the leaks and
Yeah,
the dead ends.
yeah, exactly,
And stuff like
yes,
that,
that's
because
right.
there you go,
Yeah.
that's kind of easier. And, working with the utility,
Right.
it may make sense. And they may go there or not, I don't
They
know.
may or may not. And then another category is if you've got major upgrades or major retrofits.
Yeah.
Where they may have to increase gas demand, then again, if you think of the business model of, well, we can put more money into helping increase a gas load, or we can just play, you know, we can repurpose that money and put it toward an electrification measure.
Yeah,
Then that's something that utilities are interested in also. So if there are maybe two commercial buildings that
Right.
are next to each other. And they both have major retrofits planned in their capital improvements plan or something like that. Then that could be an opportunity also.
And the utility is the one who knows the upgrade schedule, not the customers.
No,
in
the
the building.
customer, I mean, that would be a coordination effort.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
interesting,
yeah,
yeah.
you have to,
right,
and the utilities do have customer relations folks, and so they're trying to keep a pulse on these things.
Mm.
Yeah.
so, back on goals for this group. I'm gonna propose a goal of, you know, we want to advise the town. Which means we want to be able to write a report. Maybe in 6 months' time, or maybe in 12 months' time. To say what we learned, and, so that's
Okay.
a written report for the town. Is one, proposal, and I don't know whether we can decide whether 6 months or 12 months or 9 months or something is about right. Keeping a short deadline, like 6 months, will focus us on doing something achievable in that amount of time. And the effort doesn't have to stop then.
No, it doesn't, and it could really be whatever we want it to be. I mean, a 6-month document could be a memorandum.
Well, 6-month document could be,
It
this
could
is how
say,
you.
this
go-
is, this is our approach, and
This
this
is
is what
how-
we're gonna
Well,
do.
this is how the
Yeah.
town should approach this. I mean, just what you're
Yes.
saying in terms of looking at places where the utility is going to upgrade, replace the pipes, look at, et cetera.
Mhm.
Like,
Identify.
what are the characteristics of a great site? And it's not just it looks good, it's about the condition of the
Right.
pipes and.
Who might we partner with?
And that, I think the
Right.
town, that would be really useful.
Yes, what are the
It's
characters?
a-
So there might be a half dozen categories. It could be
Yes,
critical facilities. It could be facilities that are identifying major upgrades. It could be end of network
Right.
piping that's ready for replacement. So the
Right.
6 months document could be
Yeah. It
something
could be
as
that.
simple as
Right,
identifying what the ideal site would look like.
I like that idea,
Step
because
one,
that's what
step two, identifying maybe the ideal site, and then based on each site, are there potential financial incentives based on the characteristics of that
Yeah,
site?
exactly.
That might be, so we can make that 6-month document as simple or as complicated as we want to.
Right.
In
But-
fact, I would like that because you get feedback. You
right.
get
Yeah.
feedback from whoever is the audience, and is the audience the select board, or who is the
Select
audience?
board is, and town manager are a primary audience, certainly,
I mean, to get them to give feedback on,
right,
or then CMLP give feedback in terms of this is really helpful,
right.
because
Yeah.
to give. do
So
the
you
groundwork.
mentioned CMLP. Oh, well, so exploring the business model is, yeah, learn how to do business and technology model, and figuring out whether this geothermal, a geothermal network will involve CMLP, because they do the electricity in town.
Mhm.
It may
Oh, yeah.
involve National Grid. Or may not.
Yeah,
It's
may not.
sort of like, that's an open
Yeah.
question. And,
Yeah.
and the fact of those two utilities working in town does not make this easier.
Why would it not involve
Uh,
National Grid? Cause help me out, would that mean CMLP would be putting down pipe?
Well,
Don't you need the pipe in the ground? That's why I thought it had. to
well,
be
you need the
the-
pipe in the ground. I'm talking about for a pilot, let's say, to start.
That's right, first part didn't
Um,
need. National Grid.
And the pilot projects like up in Lowell, I think they have a figure of merit is like, we're gonna do a pilot in this neighborhood and at least 50% of people are gonna connect. Not 20%. They don't expect 100% necessarily. But that means they're not necessarily on those pilot projects digging up the gas line.
Assume a gas line.
But they at least have enough interest, so they're gonna service this
Mhm.
neighborhood and a lot of people will connect. So,
Where, how would National Grid not be involved in a pilot? How would
Well,
CMLP do it
so-
by
and-
itself?
the involvement, let's see. So who's going to be selling the, involvement ultimate, in the long term is who does the business of selling the heat?
There
Is
has-
that CMLP?
No, I'm
or
talking
is
about the
it-
physical plant.
The physical plant, if we dig up the gas lines for a pilot or for a bigger system, then National Grid will be involved in that. But they might not have the long term, they may or may not have long-term involvement in running the network.
So it's, I guess maybe, it means CMLP will own the gas line, the pipes.
Yeah, somehow, so it would have to, there'd have to be an exchange of money and stuff like that. I think the ideal thing would be collaborative venture. But I don't know how that works, because that's business, that's way up there in
Yeah, I mean,
the
I think if.
business stratosphere.
If it got to the point where it's a gas network. If you've got a neighborhood, for example, that's being serviced by gas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they're interested in network geothermal, it'd be hard not to involve National Grid
Right,
with that. And I thought you were more leaning toward, well, if you got an area that is not serviced by gas and it's got oil or propane. Then that would be a situation where National Grid would not be involved.
And Concord.
on the other
wait,
hand-
Wait a minute, then Concord Municipal Light Plant would have to be getting pipe fitters and putting pipe in the ground.
right, they
Right.
didn't know how to
Yeah.
do that,
Right, so that's a new skill.
right.
Yeah.
So in
Well,
fact,
contractor. would do it.
one.
Well, yeah, they would
one-
contract with the CMLP would probably contract with one, agency or.
It would just be like any other construction project at
Yeah.
that point.
Okay.
I actually think if National Grid ran the network. In a gas location, and then we built another one in an oil network and an oil service location. I think we'd probably get National Grid to run that too. If they may or may not
Maybe,
want to,
Yeah.
but that would make sense in some long-term.
I guess, I mean, that's like 4 layers of hypotheticals.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
From where we are.
But there aren't neighborhoods that are solely gas or solely fuel oil, they're mixed.
There are neighborhoods where gas doesn't get.
Yes, but I'm saying that if there's a gas in the neighborhood, people can still use fuel oil.
Yeah, less and less.
Chances are
But
they don't.
most
I think it's
people-
good-
I mean, it'd be I guess that's part of my question is kind of like, at least for me, is to figure out what the.
Have you
mix-
been into the assessor's database, and looked at this?
Of course not.
Okay, I'll show you that.
I was gonna say, is there a way to find a map
I
of
think that's what-
Concord and
it's in
who's
the
on gas and
GIS?
who's on oil?
It's not in the GIS
Um,
necessarily, but
Hey,
Okay.
Brad, I
Okay,
think
got it.
Brad, the question was, is there a way to find out who's on gas and who's
Yeah.
on oil? I think you've looked into that.
Right.
Yeah.
so the assessor's database has fairly accurate information on homes that are,
Is there a map of it or is it just?
it's just
Addresses.
we can correlate it to maps. And in fact,
Mhm.
we might want to do a GIS project. That could be
Well,
part of something.
yeah, get the GIS guy to help us with that.
Yeah, that would be really
Because
helpful.
the town has
they're always
GIS
asking.
Can we
services.
publicly identify properties as having oil, like is
Yeah.
there any?
It's in your real
It's in
estate
the-
property
it's all
taxes.
public information.
Yeah, they'll say, well, they're,
It's not necessarily accurate because
Mm.
when the house goes from oil to gas, they may forget to tell the assessors.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't think I've told the assessors that I went to heat pump.
Yeah,
For example.
so the assessors
Tell them
database
about that
has some,
$100,000 upgrade.
No, I didn't tell him anything. Man, no, I have the most ramshackle house in the world.
so,
Yeah, so getting back to the report, should we think about identifying what that would look like, Brad? So identifying the ideal site, the characteristics that go
Yeah.
into that. Maybe partners we might be thinking about, business models, so we got, business model, partnerships. The characteristics of an ideal site,
I think you want some sort of audit.
utility involvements.
Business model. So if we could do it in
Yeah.
6 months, some sort of audit that said, here, the ideal site looks like here, and here is some display of some of that information.
yeah,
Or some statement about, and the ideal site, it's just only one place in Concord, or there's many places in Concord, just something that if you can get that,
Yeah,
the,
Yeah,
I mean, I'd be very happy to work with GIS people.
yeah, yeah, and again, if that's
Yeah,
where we want to go, and we could
Yeah.
crank something
Yeah.
out in 3 months, right, really, right? Just identifying sufficiently
Right.
some criteria, or we could take it to the next level and say, okay, based on the criteria and everything that we've identified,
it
we
could-
think there might be 6 opportunities. I feel like
Yes,
that's a
that's
little
right.
down the road,
maybe,
though.
maybe, but just
Yeah.
to do the characteristics and have some way to talk about, and the opportunities high, medium, or low, just something, it's gonna be really hard to do it, or, first pass.
right, well,
Mhm.
so
Some first pass, not like, these are the 4 sites and you pick 1, 2, 3, or 4.
to me, success in 6 months. Means identifying a pilot site,
Yeah, okay.
which means, not only learning enough to have the conversations. To do the modeling and have conversations with potential customers.
I was gonna
But to
say, I
have
think,
have some conversations and say, it's looking like. We could do a pilot. Over here. That's kind of aggressive. That's hard work, it's a lot of work. But that would be, a real successful, maybe that's second 6 months.
I
I
think
think that's at least the second 6 months. Because if you think about the criteria that we just identified, each one of those criteria is gonna have its own resources devoted to it.
Mhm.
So someone from the town, somebody has to, it's gonna take some footwork, I think.
Yeah.
To identify interest and sites. And the ideal pilot would need to have that. They've gotta be incentivized to want to do it.
Yeah,
And how do you identify that? I don't know, but
right,
if they're not incentivized to do it, then we're just gonna be pushing on a string.
And I think it should be, just like you're saying, it should be additive to the staff in town, that they should see that we're bringing them information they can act on. It's not, we're giving them an assignment, we should have it so they can act on it, and we can give them something, that's been sort of digested ahead of time, because the staff is just so busy whenever you're asking them to do stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
can't, we don't have
exactly,
time.
right.
But, and the idea, I mean, seriously, the idea of identifying pilot sites, I think that, Catherine, that's, the whole idea of how do you communicate that out?
Right,
I
yes,
can see like fireworks going off if we say, and this is gonna be the site, and people go, what?
Yeah.
You didn't tell
exactly.
me, so
You're
it's
right,
a little bit of a shell game of
Right.
figuring out, identifying sites with the critical thing of what you just
Right,
said,
and maybe the
how
first-
many would be willing? That is
Yeah,
like, who are you
right.
gonna vote for
Or how
president?
many,
That's a
how
little hard
much,
one.
or how much work has the utility done? How much work has
Something.
National Grid done already to identify areas in
Maybe
Concord
that's
that are maybe ready for an upgrade?
yeah,
And let them do the dirty work, because that's
Yeah,
their
yeah,
job,
yeah.
Right.
and they're gonna be doing the outreach.
by the way, you're reminding me, and I should have mentioned it, I did have a conversation. This afternoon, just for 15 minutes with Cameron. the other guy who works at National Grid, who's on the.
Oh, with the
select
select
Oh,
board
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
board. I'd never met him, but Wendy connected, and we had a
Yeah.
phone call, and
What do you think?
he's interested in, that we're having these discussions, and he's he's more, an executive on the gas side,
Mhm,
I think, of National Grid.
yeah,
He's kind of familiar with the projects up in, Lowell and stuff,
Yeah.
but not directly connected.
right.
But he wants to be considered a resource as well.
Mhm.
Well, he might be great if there's any need to connect
Yeah,
at a higher level to sort of get,
right, and
It's
Michael
going
can
on,
make
no, the
connections.
connection, maybe,
Yeah, and I'm thinking
Right.
that particular task of, okay, what have we done in
Yeah.
Concord, for example?
Yeah,
You know, I might be able to do some research into that,
right,
you know, and. I honestly don't know how old the network is in Concord, but, you know,
probably
that's
not
what
as
we would
old
check.
as it is in Boston, but it's,
Right, but I'll tell you, the utilities are really, this is, the DPU has given both Eversource and National Grid some very challenging mandates to get people off of gas and onto electrification. So, you know, we could have a partner in this
Yeah.
who's equally as motivated
yeah,
if the opportunity is there. And so I think part of that would be finding what opportunity would also motivate National Grid
yeah,
to move forward with something like this. We don't have the EJ community, maybe critical facilities, you know, hospitals.
yeah, we have a hospital, I mean, I don't know.
Or fire departments or
Yeah.
police, I don't know, there might be
I
other
wonder if-
criteria out there.
Right.
If, education,
Education, maybe,
fits.
yeah. And when you
Or-
have your discussion with Lori, she might be helping.
Yeah, and I think that's where part of the, in my mind, the appeal is that this is an MLP community, so this hasn't been done in one of these.
Mhm.
Right.
So, you know, trying to sort this out, like I said, it could be a model for elsewhere, you know, so that kind of, I think, makes us unique.
right,
So maybe even if, you know, we don't have that, you know, the EJ communities to focus on or something, maybe this is something that can somehow set us apart, and we say, oh, well, this, if we can come up with a reasonable business model
yeah,
that might work in other MLP communities, well, they have EJ populations, and so maybe we can, you know, they
Yeah.
could take the, you know, this effort and apply it elsewhere,
Mhm.
so.
right.
I was just gonna,
Yeah.
just Healy Driscoll can, you know, they just established the first in the nation Office of Energy Transition in Massachusetts.
okay,
And they have 3 mandates. They're really looking at sort of decarbonizing how we meet peak electricity demand. So looking at peaker plants and trying to, you know, so it's less focused on geothermal, but one of their 3 focus areas is establishing alternative mechanisms to finance the future grid transition. And they just hired their executive director, but there is an office at the state level that's looking at that. And I'm just wondering, thinking about just both being a partner, getting some more resources, just sort of maybe not financial resources, but resources as to what's they're looking at the state, but also kind of giving our project some heft. If we could kind of reach out to that office and see what they're doing, or if they can support us in any way, I think that could be useful.
Office of,
the energy transition. so
Energy
you're saying-
Transformation.
I haven't heard of that.
Energy transformation, sorry, OEA or OE, oh, sorry, OET, the Office of Energy
Uh-huh.
Transformation.
It was
Okay.
just started, and actually, a former executive from National Grid is leading that up right
cool.
now.
Okay.
She just left 2 months ago to
Okay, to do
to
that,
work for the governor, yeah.
cool.
And she wrote she was a primary author for the transition that got submitted to the DPU, which they're still reviewing, so. There's a recognition that we've got, the entire state has 2050 decarbonization goals, and no one's really quite sure how we go about doing that. And I think there's also a recognition that we're out there trying to motivate people to install heat pumps, but it's expensive,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and not everybody not everybody is willing to pony up the delta between a heat pump and a boiler,
yeah,
and it's hard.
right,
And geothermal is particularly expensive, like you noted, Alan.
Yeah.
So,
It's particularly expensive, but there are cases when the incentives have been high enough that it's like, that's not expensive. You know, when
Right.
you sum the tax credit plus a huge rebate and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that was looking expensive. But not necessarily. And with the network geothermal, I think the big hope is you do it on a big enough scale. That you get some economy from that.
I guess, yeah, it's the. So I'm assuming that the drilling of the wells is one of the major costs.
It's a
So if it's
major cost,
shared,
certainly, and also the
Mhm.
equipment in the homes, so if you can do, bulk buys and.
Yeah,
Coordinate installations, you get some economy there.
yeah. I mean, I love the idea that we're doing as a model of municipal light, for the municipal light boards around the state, because we're at 30 or so. Municipal
40.
light plants, 40.
41, I
Westfield's one of them,
think 41.
yeah, they,
So,
that's cool, yeah.
So could I just ask a question?
Sure.
Well, I guess two things. One is, I guess I'm wondering sort of when CMLP should be engaged or aware of any of this. And maybe they don't want to be involved
I was
at
gonna
this
raise
point.
the
Maybe they
same
don't,
question.
maybe they don't need to be
Oh,
involved at this point, but I think an awareness would probably be useful. So, because when this topic first came up a few months ago, probably at a climate action committee meeting, just, you know, as a topic of interest. I reached out to them to ask whether, you know, if there had been any awareness or discussions about it within Concord or the light plant communities, and you know, because I said there was some interest within the committee at looking at it in more detail, and you know, their response was, "Oh, it sounds like a really interesting idea. I think it would all depend on the business model."
right, no,
So I mean, I think they're sort of, you know, open to learning more about it and
Right.
considering it. So I guess that's just one question is whether, you know, let's sort of, you know, I mean, I think it'd be good to do some awareness that, you know, there is a subcommittee and people are looking
Yeah.
into it, and, you know, I guess they could gauge.
That's
Whether or not they
one of the
wanna-
reasons I wanna do this in the open.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that,
And then sort of related to that is whether, you know, because there's also Energy New England. You know, which is sort of that consortium of,
Yeah.
of half the light plants that we have a stake in, is, you know, if we're looking for, you know, resources or something, you know,
Yeah.
is it worth approaching them to say,
Right.
also let them know, like, hey, we're interested in looking at this model in the light plant community, and
That's a organization of the light plants in the state.
they represent about half the light plants,
Oh,
and
okay.
Concord has an ownership stake, or I think we're one of 4 light plants that has an ownership stake.
Okay.
It's a consulting.
no, it's,
Or is it mine?
they do, they help us with purchasing energy.
Oh.
and,
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they do everything from helping
Yeah,
out like their
efficiency
member
services.
light plants, yeah, purchase electricity to, you know, they have an EV specialist group that supports their towns in, you know,
I think
EV
it's-
adoption and things
it's-
like that. So anyway, I'm just throwing it out there just to
Yeah.
say, like, you know, maybe beyond
Good idea.
Concord, but within that
Yeah, no,
smaller
that's-
subset that, you know, maybe they would have some interest in exploring this too. Maybe they could bring some resources to it or
Yeah,
something
So-
like that, so.
Brian Fools wants to be, he came to the discussion we had and he's very interested in this. He's on the light board. Involving CMLP on the business side, like Laura Scott or something like that. Should happen at the right time, not too far down the road. But I think we should get, you know, we should sort of, the CMLP is so lean.
yeah,
They don't have lots of time to start wondering about, network geothermal. Because they have to wonder about everything and keep the
Yeah.
lights on. So I think Brian should, I hope he stays involved and, he's good at thinking about, you know, business modeling at the high level. And he has good connections with Laura and, you know, I think we'll bring them in at the right time, but I hadn't thought about Energy New England. Energy New England could be a very interesting partner. They're used by about half of the municipal light plants. And they're, I think, nimble enough so that they can like, oh, want us to do some of that? We can hire somebody and,
We'd have to pay them for that.
right.
Yeah, it's a service.
So in fact, I would like to, not immediately, but I'd like to get a consultant. Or a professional who is paid to do some modeling. Who knows something about this. To help us learn. That means we have to be able to pay for it.
How do we do that? Is it-
It's either grants. It's asking the town nicely at town meeting time, or it's private fundraising.
Aren't the grants, am I wrong that they're linked to EJ communities?
There's lots of grants.
Oh, okay,
Heat gave grants to a whole bunch of towns.
Okay.
And they might prioritize a lot of communities, but they
Yeah, I think one of
sort of
the
not.
potential challenges with heat is that I believe that their funding comes through the Mass Clean Energy Center, and that funding typically comes from the Renewable Energy Trust, which we don't pay into.
That's,
Is that
I wouldn't assume this at all.
okay?
We've gotten, we got a Heat Smart grant from Mass EEC.
Okay.
Some of their funds are
Okay.
open to, so. So. There are private individuals in this town that
Yes.
could write a check if that's just the right way to, fund some stuff. And that, that's, a little anxiety provoking, thinking about making the ask, but, it's been done before. And, on the grant funding, now, I sent you an email earlier, Eric, on that DOE, EECBG. Did you
Yeah.
decide on a project you're applying for that?
No, I pursued a number of pathways and, nothing was coming up that really seemed viable. So including, I talked to, Dylan over there about
Yeah.
the network geothermal opportunity.
But I don't know what you asked him about.
Well, I asked him about this, whether he thought that this funding opportunity would be a good pathway, to look for some money to do a feasibility study
Okay,
here based on our efforts, and explain a lot of what we're talking about here. It's a lake plant community. We don't know what the
Yeah.
business model is. We're really interested in finding that out. We'd be looking for some money to support a study here. And while he thought it was a really interesting idea, he was not particularly encouraging in terms of this opportunity for pursuing funding for that. Like, he didn't feel like it would be very competitive for this. He seemed to think that a lot of the money for this particular opportunity is going to be focused on specific projects, like specific building projects. And we thought something that was sort of higher level, bigger scale like this would not necessarily be competitive. So he was suggesting that we might want to look at a meta grant through DOER, which is the municipal, I wrote it down, municipal energy technical assistance grants, which I believe is an annual opportunity through DOER. I think they typically happen in the spring. So assuming that there's a spring opportunity for that next year, and I can follow up and check on that, then that could be something we could pursue. They're typically smaller, like $10,000 to $20,000, but if we think that's a reasonable amount to.
that's not enough really to do it.
So, well, I was curious, because, I saw that the heat grants, like some towns got,
25 or 50K.
yeah, some towns like Acton, on the website, it says Acton only got 10,000 from heat. Like they listed a few towns that got 50,000 and a few towns that got 10,000, so I wasn't
Yeah.
quite sure what the difference was.
But
But maybe there could be more. I'll
Yeah.
have to find out about that. And then the other thing he suggested is that maybe like looking forward, and this is probably a little potentially outside our time frame, although is the newer Green Communities Climate Leaders Program, which hasn't really materialized yet. Right now, towns are sort of in the process of pulling together materials to, that they need to apply for that status in green communities, but
Yeah,
if you get climate leaders designation, then you may be eligible for additional funding that other communities don't have,
Yeah.
and he seemed to think that particular program would fit well with something like this.
right. So for the ECBG, which is something we should apply for something. Do you have do you have something you want to apply for?
I don't have anything in particular, because
Then it doesn't hurt for us to apply for it, for this project. If we define it as a planning effort towards towards a pilot project. Not just a thought experiment to make a report, but to
identify
to,
a pilot project.
learn to model and work towards a pilot project, which, you know, something like 50K, which is that opportunity, I think could get us a long way there. And it's a year, you know, it's to be spent within a year, if I'm right, so that kind of, we should apply for something. It's an easy application.
yeah, I'm happy to talk more about that. Yeah, I mean, we're under a really tight time frame at this point, but yeah, I'm happy to talk about that more. Look at that.
Yeah, I think,
So,
What's the tight timeframe, Eric? Is there? You mean other things going on with you, that you've got to address?
yeah,
first?
well, the deadline is,
Or the deadline for this?
deadline's August 18th.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Yeah,
yeah, so between now and then, yeah,
Yeah.
it might be tight, but you know, certainly something we can look at and see if there's something we can do with it.
so I would think that means, writing up, a proposal this week and talking to, town leadership about whether it's appropriate to, submit it. And it's not a detailed proposal, it's a simple, it's just form proposal. It's not like, I don't,
but he's got to talk to a committee also.
what?
So what are the steps to, I'm just wondering if there's enough time to do that. The 18th is 11 days away.
No, is there enough time to do it? It depends whether we really want to do it.
But what are the steps to do it? Yeah, I heard,
I don't
You
think
say
we have
something
to
about
talk
needing
to, I
to
don't think
contact the
CAC has to, recommend it as a full committee. I think the town manager has to say, you know, this looks good, we can apply, we can send this.
right,
submit.
so. Eric needs to contact the town manager. Is that the next step for him? Once, let's say he fills out the application. He has to get it approved by someone in the town. Who is that? Or what is that committee in the town? that has to approve it?
He reports to the assistant town manager, and I think that would be if he, I think. If we have you know, it's not a lot of money, I think it's an application that could be. I could draft something in a day. That would, I think, say what we want to do with that money.
Yeah, my
And-
question is more, does he have to go through an official committee or is it just, hey,
No, I think he
you
can go through his
got
boss.
10 minutes to talk about this? Sure, it sounds good, just apply.
I would think he could go to his,
So I can talk to some people tomorrow.
is
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
is this the what's the amount of money? Is this the EEC?
This is a $50,000 opportunity that is open to,
This is a green,
it's from the Department of Energy, but it's dispersed by the DOER for communities below 35,000
Oh.
residents.
Okay.
And so they're accepting applications until August 18th, and that deadline has been there for a couple of months.
okay,
for 3 months or something, so it's, it will,
What is their request? It's just energy.
well, there's,
transition?
in
What is
that.
the scope of the
It's fairly,
grant?
it's fairly broad ranging.
Oh, okay.
Um, So a lot of it tends to be like project-based, like buildings, project-based. But yeah, so some other things I had looked at was solar feasibility study for the town based on some work that the solar task force had done. Some work on the public safety building, the envelope of the public safety building.
What now? Expand on that, cause that's the kind of project they are favoring, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, things that tend to be more, defined project focused.
Yeah.
So I talked to the facilities director about whether there were, opportunities for any of the municipal buildings. And he said that is some envelope work that needs to be done on the public safety building. But in talking to the program manager as part of that too, they suggested that you would need probably the equivalent of like a level 2 ASHRAE audit for the building in order to, for the proposal. And you don't have time for that. The facilities manager, Russ, said he could, he'd probably pull some numbers together, but he said he didn't think he could pull anything together on that particular level for that. He also has concerns about, he's not particularly keen right now on pursuing individual building projects. Because we're trying to get these building audits done and he wants to do it through an ESCO model and we're trying to work on the RFP for that and get that out. So he's reluctant to tackle individual building projects, knowing that that's happening. He'd rather just, try to wait until we can hopefully get an ESCO set up for the town, which is what he'd prefer to do.
Okay.
The solar feasibility, that had largely probably comes down to the schools. The solar task force had identified the high school roof and the drainage swale between BD and the high school as higher priority potential locations for solar. I reached out to CMLP to see about, possibly pursuing some money to do solar feasibility on the high school roof. The schools have seemed fairly opposed to doing any solar in the drainage swale for a number of reasons that they have offered.
There's no way you could get a grant to work on the school project.
Exactly. So, so I reached out to CMLP first to see whether, if they were excited about it, we could have tried to push forward on that, but you need the school buy-in and we don't have that right now to pursue that, so.
I'd like to volunteer to try to just draft something up on Friday and send it around to get some comments. And
this is
see if we can meet with the assistant town manager and get approval to submit it. Because this may not be that competitive. It depends on how many towns are, I don't remember how much money it is, but I think there were at least 30 towns that could get these.
I think it was a little over $1 million maybe total.
Right, so it was
but there are a lot of towns less than 35,000 residents. What is there only
Yeah.
30?
it depends how many people actually apply.
Oh, okay. There are a
We
lot of
have
small
to-
towns that don't have the staff to apply
Right.
in the
Well,
Western Mass.
So
None. Ready. Okay, and then we probably won't get it.
It'll help to
But
focus.
it helps to focus. It's
Yeah.
a good exercise to go through and say,
I mean,
what do we want to do? So it's gonna be about, let's talk about it. And by the way, I didn't want to stay too late. I wanted to leave time to go get a beer afterwards. But I think it's engaging a consultant to do some modeling. And to business and technology modeling.
Yes.
And trying to decide on a pilot project.
It's helping getting from them what they think about, what are the criteria they think about in
Right.
terms of identifying an ideal site. That would be, I think that would be incredibly helpful.
Identifying the site, but also a consultant, can also help with some community engagement, like
Mhm.
run a couple of public meetings
Oh, if
for the
that's part of
town
it, of
in the
course, yeah.
springtime and like get, you know, get some buzz and, stuff like that. I think this is, I think it would be money well spent, because I don't think we can do this on our own.
No, we can, I mean, I can come up with lots of ideas, but to actually figure out what's feasible and what's been done before, that's where the consultant would be so helpful.
Right,
To have the experience. To
And can it
say,
be, can it be beyond just the criteria on paper, but actually saying, like, looking at Concord and looking, doing the sort of looking at the sort of map that doesn't exist yet of who's on gas and what the sites are, and, to Ellen's point, like the
Yeah.
sitting of it.
it'd be nice if we could get to that.
so,
Because that seems like
So-
the really hard work, but the work that is going to push it forward ultimately.
right, so to get a consultant, we'd have to develop an RFP, a request for proposals. For a certain set of tasks, among them what Catherine describes about, just like opportunities, long-term and short-term.
Inventory
Related to
them,
the
sure.
gas infrastructure, but also, I don't know. Maybe harder to define it than, we don't have to write the RFP for the consultant, this is just part of the work we would do with that grant. Is, involve CMLP in it. Write an RFP and try to, at the end of a consultant's work, have some sort of project in mind. And I see that as a reasonable effort in a year.
Oh, year, yeah.
And
Yeah,
there's-
I think the community engagement part, I don't think people really know what geothermal is. It's the,
I don't know,
like geothermal hype, it's just all one buzzword if it's not something that,
and the way
it's
your
like-
neighbor knows.
Oh,
You're,
I know.
uh, no, I'm talking about,
Mike Power?
Bridget. Don't
Yes,
you live
you-
right near Bridget?
Yeah,
She's putting, she's gonna turn the crank on the geothermal.
oh, cool.
So, but are you thinking that, so what stage of the process, so step back a little bit, are we still thinking about a 6-month memorandum / report? And
Yeah.
if so, in order to generate that, do we want to have a consultant on board, or would one of the recommendations be to hire a consultant? I'm just trying to,
Well, I would,
how much are we gonna rely on the consultant before we can actually start doing things?
oh, I think we can start, I think we should write the table of contents. The goals for what we want to have in a 6-month report. At the same time, we try to figure out how to get a consultant. And see where we get to. I think that, Heat can help us with some modeling. They've been thinking about this, so maybe they know people who have spreadsheets and
Mhm.
stuff that can help us do some of that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe as we try to articulate what goes into the table of contents and with this document, we may also at the same time be identifying things that we can parse out and give to the consultant to do.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah,
like that
thing-
community engagement, I think,
They'll know how to do
they'll
it.
know how to do it, they can generate flyers, whatever, whatever we
yes,
deem necessary for that. That would be something, that
Right.
might be one task, the business model would be another. Yeah, I mean, but, so the question is how. Is not having the consultant going to preclude us for doing our own digging and research into everything we've talked about so far.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But we have so much learning to do,
I think that,
and we won't be taken seriously unless we have some professional involved, I think, ultimately.
and it's always when you hire a consultant, if you know, when you know a lot of this stuff, but to be knowledgeable about how to manage a consultant
Oh, right.
is
Get what-
an essential part so that they, you get what
Have you
you.
had bad experiences? with
Oh, I'm on the Transportation Advisory Committee and they hired a consultant to do a survey that I wasn't pleased with, but that, you know, it's like you have to, the consultant, you almost have to know not as much, you don't have the experience,
Yeah.
but certainly the
Yeah.
domain, you have to know the
Yeah.
box you want to put them in.
I was a
You know,
consultant for 20 years.
yeah, well, me too. It's
Yeah,
like-
I know,
You really have to,
yeah.
it's like when you take your car to the mechanic, you better know that
Anything.
what's a reasonable thing for them to say is wrong with your car,
So
right?
this 6-month report would be listed as a deliverable,
Yeah,
a 6 and a 12-month
yeah,
kind of write-up would be a deliverable for a project that we wanted to apply for a grant on. And then the hiring,
Well, the 6 months is, you're not identifying a project yet in the 6 months.
no.
Right, okay,
it's the how-to.
yes.
And the project's 12 months. Actually, I love the idea of the 12 months, we're talking about a project.
Yeah,
That'd be pretty
Right.
exciting.
Well, that's because these projects take time and we wanna, you know,
the other thing to consider is that. At some point, the Framingham and Lowell projects are gonna help give us some
Right,
idea of what that business model is gonna look like, but I think that's many years down the road, unfortunately.
no,
And
well, those pilots are 1-year pilots, so there should be some data spinning off of that. Next summer,
Next, you would hope, I just, yeah,
at least from Framingham.
yeah.
Have they broken ground in Lowell?
Was August, yes, I believe they were going to break ground this, I don't know.
They did.
Oh, there
Hi,
it is.
there's-
It's back.
Okay.
Okay.
Not sure what
So
just
we-
happened, but it was frozen. for-
I don't know, every now and then in this room, I get this connectivity issue that pops up, and usually it doesn't do that, but I think it's just with the Wi-Fi and connectivity or something, so I think we just lost you temporarily.
This place is like a third world country.
It is, it's just amazing. I can't even have a conversation going down Route 2 on the way to.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
That's crazy. So,
Promise, Tricon is
Yeah.
really getting, I think Tricon said this for 3 years, but we are.
I've got an
in
email
conversation
here
with Verizon.
from, the guy at work who was a project manager for the Lowell project. Which
Oh, great.
I did ping him to ask about it. He said, I'm not sure the finite timeline for the learnings, which is mostly due to the fact that we aren't yet sure of the timeline for construction. It will likely be a few years until we can build the system and collect sufficient data to be able to avoid outliers due to weather/usage patterns. So
Oh, yeah, so.
it's a number of,
Yeah,
I mean, we'll
it's a
get,
number of
we'll get
years before you
something.
really know.
Yeah.
But they are, I guess, I don't know as much about that one, but I think the pilots are meant to be like intensively studied for a year just to figure out where we are, to get some data out of it. cause,
Yeah, go through a seasonal cycle, yeah.
um.
So anyway, the reason I brought it up is because I was just thinking out loud how we might be able to leverage Lowell and Framingham, but it doesn't sound like the
Let me
the
see.
timing is gonna work for us if we're looking 6 and 12 months out.
So I sent,
What was the, I don't think I got
the
that.
thing
What
I
was it?
sent was, no. And just, oh, yes, so this is it, the, August 15th. Is the Framingham meeting
It's in Framingham? or it's-
in Framingham, and um. It's appended to my thing, so it's going to be at 7 PM.
Mhm.
With heat, so heat is involved. And it's,
Can you send that again? So-
it was yesterday at 12:34 PM.
Oh.
Sending it again.
Thank you.
So, where are we at? We're at 8:30. And, yeah, this is a lot of work. We got through goals, reviewing, we didn't really review the network geothermal pilots, we don't, we know what we know. And we didn't really, talk that much about business model pathways. But that's kind of that's a longer term thing, that's part
Talk as
of what
much
we're
as
gonna
we
do in the
can.
next 6 months.
We don't know anything, but
Right.
that's why we didn't talk about
Right.
it.
Grant funding pathways we did talk about, and I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I think just to hop in, trying to propose something. It may or may not be ready to go in, at the end of next week, but it's worth trying just for the hell of it. See what we can get together, see if we're on the same page as to what we wanna do. So, we don't have like a lot, so, if I write something up and send it out to you guys, would you be able to review it over the weekend and send some, comments back?
I'm gone all weekend. When are you
Me
gonna send
too.
that?
I don't know, it's gotta be done,
Yeah, 'cause
you know.
I'm gone Friday through Monday, but I could look at it before or after that. I mean, I think we've accomplished a few things tonight,
Yeah.
and we can write those down. We've identified report milestones of 6 and 12 months. We've identified high level criteria.
Let me try to write
Go
something
into
at a
that
high
document.
level tomorrow
And send it
and
out,
send it
yeah.
out. Get some feedback, cause I'm not very good at this. I don't have lots of experience writing proposals, but let me see what I can.
Okay.
It'll be,
A long journey. It's a first step in a long journey.
Yeah.
This will be a long journey.
and so one of the things one of my goals, by the way, for this. Project is whether to update our climate action plan. To make network geothermal. One of the actions.
Okay.
That is, we have electrification as an action. And it's described as helping homes become electrified. But this is different.
Mhm.
It's. Closely related, but it's different. It's, and it wasn't even a thing back in 2020 that people were talking about, so.
Well, first step, I'm excited about the concept about writing up the how-tos and then getting that into a proposal for a consultant. And then partnering with somebody we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Mhm.
That's what I would worry that I would do, because I just don't know the area, the field
Right.
at all. I'd be reading up and
Mhm.
it's like somebody who knows what they're doing can say, okay, here's the answer. I go off and apply this specific way.
Yeah,
And so I mean, I'll definitely go to, I didn't see it was in the email, go to the Framingham.
great,
I can do that.
good.
So if nobody else can, I'll do that and report back.
And you're going to Pennsylvania.
I'm going to Pennsylvania this
I'm
weekend.
connecting you
With
with.
Dad and Rock Rock, you know.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna tell
Oh,
her
I
you
know.
said that. And,
At least you have to go, you can go, well, we should adjourn the meeting.
Yes, let's do that.
And so Catherine, you've been quiet, but I'm so glad you joined us.
yeah, you're gonna,
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. Yeah, I'm happy to take a look too. I don't know, I'm not technical, so, but I can certainly review a
you're
proposal.
probably good at writing, so there you
None of
go.
this is gonna be technical
No.
for a while.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm happy to chime in.
And,
And if it gets too technical, it's not gonna be very good for outreach.
well, right, once you start going down the technical rabbit hole, which we love to do,
Yeah,
it's, you lose focus real quick on the bigger questions.
or rather, this is a lot, and as you're saying, a lot of it's buy-in, a lot of it's business model, a lot of it's not, certainly the technical part. It's gotta work, but,
Are you getting some sailing in?
oh, sailing, you
Not
sail,
as much as I would, yeah, I do sail up here.
Cool.
Not as
wonderful.
much as I would like, but I'm hoping I'll be up here for another week and I'm hoping to do a little bit more up here. Yeah, no, it's lovely.
Okay,
Where in Maine are you?
Booth Bay Harbor.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
lovely.
My brother's got a place up in Pemaquid.
Oh, nice. Yeah, just the next peninsula
Next-
over.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
next inlet over.
Yeah.
exactly.
By boat, it's not very far, but by car, it's it's probably an
Exactly.
hour or
Oh,
something.
isn't that the truth? It's like in
Yeah.
and out, and you're like,
Yeah.
all this kind of crazy
okay.
inlets.
Well, enjoy and we'll be seeing you soon.
Great. And then do we have meeting dates or are you
We
gonna
have
set?
the next meeting date.
Yeah.
This, what did we pick today? Today was the
Thursday,
Wednesday,
oh, it's Wednesday,
and it's
Right,
like halfway
Wednesday,
through the
yep.
month, so we could meet a Wednesday,
second Wednesday.
second Wednesday
Seven.
next month? Is that any better or worse than any other time?
Yeah, I think Wednesday's good.
Wednesday's good.
Hump day.
It's away from the
Middle of week.
weekend, so challenges for
Yeah.
conflicts.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're talking about the second Wednesday of September would be the 11th.
Yeah, that's good. School will be started, things will be kicking off again, and the dust will start settling around then, so.
Absolutely.
Without looking at my calendar, that conceptually works.
Okay. Okay, good.
All right.
So let's call it a day.